Hey folks, we're out here on the porch on this beautiful sunny day, and we are going to be adding to our citrus collection. Now you may be saying, a citrus collection? I mean, it's not something that you typically could plant in the earth here in New York. So that's a zone 5 or 6. So my brethren who are out in like Florida or San Diego, they could say, I could just like plant that right into the ground, which is super lucky. I mentioned this once before, but I think the only citrus that is hardy enough to this zone is called the flying dragon. And it's not a citrus that, not like a regular orange or grapefruit that you could actually just sit eating. And in the case of most of these, well, these are kumquats right here that you're going to look at. And then you might remember my calamondin, and you might remember the limequat. The limequat is the only one right now that has a little fruit set on it. Nothing too big. It's probably the size of like a nickel. So that's awesome. And my calamondin, I had pulled this one into the meadow house right behind me, usually in the winter, because you have to pull these in winter months. If you have a greenhouse, it's probably much better for these plants because they go through a little less stress. But when you pull them into a semi-dark house, you're just like kind of crossing your fingers and knowing that these leaves are probably going to fall off. And that is exactly what happened to this one right here. But lo and behold, as soon as I brought them out in a warm spring day, now it's like getting to be summer, it's early summer, the leaves popped out in this one. And the best thing about that is the leaves look so beautiful because they're all new leaves. The limequat, on the other hand, is kind of going through some stuff. It looked like it got some spider mite damage and everything, but it still kind of pushed through and put out a little lime on it, which is awesome. But what I'm going to be talking about are these kumquats today, because I got 2 new ones, which is very exciting. And this one, you may recall, was the Nagami kumquat, and I'll link to that video. And this one has yet to put out any kind of fruit. I moved it into a new pot, or a new old pot kind of thing, because the pot that I had like a hairline crack in it. And when I had it outdoors, it just kind of shattered, and I had it taped for a while, but that just wasn't going to last all that long. But let me focus on these 2, which are really exciting. Now, these are from Logi's greenhouse. We've done a great tour with Byron Martin from Logi's. They have an excellent citrus collection, and they're in Connecticut, so they're kind of in like that zone 6, zone 7, but they have great greenhouses, and that's where they grow all of their citrus, and they do all their own grafts. And I can't take any credit for what they have here, but this is like beautiful, luscious, thick green growth. There's some flower sets that are already happening on both of these plants, which is exciting. And you may say, well, what are these 2 different plants? These are 2 different cultivars. And what's interesting, and I have not followed up with the taxonomy in this group, but from what I recall, this was always in Fortunella, and that is actually what Logi's has. So this one's Fortunella abuvata, so this is a different species, supposedly. And this one is Fortunella crassifolia right here. So abuvata is right here, crassifolia is right here. And then this was, I think, Fortunella margarita, the Nagami one. But now, I think they've all put them into Citrus japonica. So I'm not sure why. I remember reading that they were looking at the electron microscope of like the pollen grains of these guys, and they found them to be different species, but now I guess they all lump them together into Citrus japonica. So now we have different cultivars, but some people would say, no, I'm a splitter. I want to split them up into all different ones. They all have slightly different tastes. They have all slightly different fruits. This one is a bit more like ovate, like egg-shaped, and these are a bit rounder and I think a bit sweeter as well. So Nagami, and then this one is the cultivar of Shangsu, and this one is the Miwa. The Miwa is probably the second most popular cultivar that you see in the market. The Shangsu kumquat is rare. So, and I don't know anybody other than Logi's that carries it. So we're gonna plant these up today, and I'm also going to fertilize them and maybe top them off a little bit. When I have these outdoors, it's kind of crazy, but like, you know, I find sunflowers like buried in them and everything from the chipmunks. And they tend to take the top of the stuff off. So I'm going to top it off because like the roots start to stick up or whatever. So I have 3 planters here. I got to choose. I think I might take this one out of this one and put that one in here because I like to have all 3 different ones. But you can see that this is just a beautiful, they do all their own grafts at Logie's. And I want a well-draining mix. So I'm going to just use Espoma's regular potting mix, and I'm going to put in some perlite. Because we have like great airflow outdoors, and I have these outdoors for half the year, but then I have to bring them indoors, I still want to have a well-draining mix. So out here I don't worry about it as much because you have a lot of airflow. You have just like regular air. But as soon as I bring them into a more stale environment within the house in the winter months, then it's a bit more challenging. I'm having such a hard time opening these. I have been doing so much work with my hands lately that I'm like, oh, my hands are so sore. Okay, stop complaining. This will be the easiest task you have of the day. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of this. I'm gonna mix this right in here. You could always wet down the perlite because it could be a little bit dusty. So here we go. I'm gonna leave the tags in here because I'll be like, which one's the Shang Tzu and which one's the Miwa? But it's exciting to add to these. I mean, right now the only thing I have to show for it is a little lime quat. That's about it. And I'm adding a little bit of this like barky orchid mix because I thought to the top because I thought like it will help prevent the chipmunks from digging in it, but nothing really prevents the chipmunks from digging in it. So perfect. And I'm going to fertilize these. It's late spring, beginning of summer. It's a good time to fertilize them because that's how you're gonna get like that better fruit set. We did seem to have an early spring this year, so I'm hoping that I might actually find some fruits. And I feel like I'm kind of cheating because as I shared, this has already got some flowers on it, compliments of having it grown in a greenhouse. And I do want to upgrade at some point. I definitely want to have a greenhouse here so I could just easily move these plants in and have a place in the summer month or the winter months. It's really challenging having them in a house period, but also a house that's being renovated. The other thing I could do is move this into the temporary chicken coop, which is now Peepo and Tutu, my little diamond doves coop. And I will be getting some electricity in there for like lights and stuff. So I might be able to have some grow lights. I think that would benefit the birds as well as maybe some of the plants. So maybe the plants could temporarily live in there. The challenge with that is when I have it in like a little aviary coop area, it gets pooped on by the birds. You kind of want to bury it at the soil level that the plant was grown in. The grafts are usually pretty high, so the graft is up here, as you can see. So, and you'll notice on this one, I'll link to that video, but this calamondin in the back, last year it was going through some stuff with the yellow leaves and everything, and I surmised that it wasn't a fertilizer issue. I surmised that it was actually the leaves growing below the graft, and it was sucking out the energy of it, and it's course corrected, so it doesn't have any type of yellow leaves any longer, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm just gonna top this off. The barky mix kind of looks good, and it's almost like a mulch. It prevents it from getting too dry, I guess. So I'm gonna be using this citrus tone, and I would say the best thing you could do is like follow the back of the directions, because if you're like somebody in Florida or San Diego who could like put these in the ground, then you're gonna be utilizing like way more fertilizer. One thing you don't wanna do is you don't want to put it too close to the trunk of the tree, so you could burn it that way. So generally you want it like 6 inches away, and you'll notice that some of these planters are quite close together. So you're gonna want to only do a little, and you're going to, I could have and should have probably buried it lower in here, and I just was yapping away and I didn't didn't think about it, but 1.5 tablespoons, I think, per quart of soil if you have it in a container. So 1.5 tablespoons, which is not much. And so with these smaller containers, like this one's probably is 6 inches, my guess, without having to measure it. You wanna just go a little bit around, work it in, and then you're gonna water it. Remember, not close to the trunk. And just 1.5 tablespoons per 4 inches. And this one, for instance, I'm gonna put this right around the edge, and this one takes probably about 5 tablespoons because it's a little bit larger. It's about a 16-inch, okay? And then this one's about a 12-inch. So, you know, you do the math, 4.5 tablespoons. And this, I'm just gonna work a little bit in on the edges because like I said, you don't want it to get too close to the trunk, and this is already close because these are smaller containers. So what I should have done maybe is buried this a bit more closer to their small rootlets down below. I'm just gonna water these in now. These will want good water. I have these typically like under an awning, so if the rain comes in, it might hit it at an angle, but oftentimes I'm watering these in because they're under an awning. If they weren't, I would just have keep them out. And if you have a well draining enough of potting medium, then they're not gonna be sitting in a soggy bottom. I also have them in terracotta, which is super helpful. If you are somebody who tends to overwater, then I would say look into a potting medium that is more well draining, maybe increase the perlite or the vermiculite or whatever you're using, and then also provide it as much airflow as possible. And in the summer months, if you can, put them on your fire escape. I know that's not like legal, or put them out on your porch or your patio like I'm doing here, and they'll reward you with like beautiful growth and hopefully, fingers crossed, some citrus. So that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week. Bye. Stay tuned here for more progress, plant tips, tours, and plant-filled hangout sessions here on Plant One On Me. And if you have a second, hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button to share your love for the channel. That helps us grow and share our videos to more folks like you. And if you want a deeper understanding of plants, head over to homesteadbrooklyn.com to check out all of our online houseplant courses and offerings, from the 125 houseplant care spreadsheet to the houseplant masterclass. And we'll see you in the next episode.